Hello and welcome to the San Diego Unified Office Skills Training video series, Tips and Tricks. In today's video, we're going to be working in Microsoft Word, and we're going to be talking about the various ways that you can adjust the margins in your Word document. So the document we're going to use today to do that practice is one that we use in our beginning Microsoft Word class, and it's called Formatting and Editing. All right, here we have a document. It's something that we use for practicing in our Microsoft Word class, and it's simply just a series of repeating sentences made up into smaller paragraphs and some larger paragraphs, and then still some even larger paragraphs. It's several pages long, so it allows us to do a number of different things that we can practice using all the features of Microsoft Word. As you can see down here, it's actually 8 pages long. So to be able to adjust the margins, first we have to understand what the margins are by default when we open up a document. And typically you're going to see 1-inch margins all the way around. And because we have our rulers present here, that'll help us understand exactly what that looks like. So in this ruler, between these different icons that we see up here, we see a white section. And that represents the body of the document. This is where we do our writing of all of our words, and the gray area to the left and the gray area to the right are in fact the margins, and we can put our cursor anywhere in the middle here, but if we try to put our cursor out here, we can't put a cursor. It's just going to try and select some text for us. So the margins right now we can see are set with 1 inch on the left and on the right. And then also we see that we have a ruler on the side, and we see that it ends here. And if we took a careful look at it, we'll see that it's also 1-inch margins on the top. And if we scroll down to the bottom, then we can see that where the white part of the ruler ends, we can see that we have exactly 1 inch there. So this is the default margins, 1 inch all the way around. But suppose we want to make some adjustments. Maybe we want to put more information on this page. We want to make the margins a little bit more narrow. We have lots of options to do that. So when we open up Microsoft Word, by default, we end up on the Home tab ribbon. And so all we need to do is to move over to the Layout tab ribbon. And the very first group that we see is the Page Setup group. We have a number of different options here, and this might be a good time just to mention if you want to switch from portrait, which is the way it comes by default, to landscape, or putting your paper sideways. Maybe you're making a poster or something like that that you want to pin up somewhere. This is where you can make those choices to do that, as well as choose different size papers. But we're just going to stick with the default 8.5 by 11, what most printers have and what we usually use as far as paper goes. But the very first command that we see over here is margins, and it has a little more button down below here. And if we click on that, then we get to see all the different options for margins. So up at the top, it says last custom setting. Whatever the last time you set up a custom setting, it's going to reflect there. It's actually got the default one, just 1 inch all the way around. But we can see there's a little blue box around where it says normal here. And that's actually the one that has been selected for this. This is just normal. 1 inch on the top, 1 inch on the bottom, 1 inch on the left, 1 inch on the right. So if we want more room to be able to write, we could select this one right here, narrow, for example. And you see up here on our ruler that now it's gone from this point all the way over to here, which represents a 1/2 inch. So now we have a 1/2 inch on either side. And if we look over here, it's kind of hard to tell, but we have a smaller one on top. In fact, if we go back and look at where we're at, you'll see that we have a 1/2 inch all the way around. And there's some other options that are right there for us to take a look at. We could choose moderate, where it's 1 inch on top, 1 on the bottom, and then it's 3/4 of an inch on the left and on the right. And so we can see that the ruler is reflecting that. So we really do have a lot of options available here. Maybe we want to do something very serious and have a 2-inch margin on the left and a 2-inch margin on the right. That's a little extreme, but let's take a look and see what that looks like. So what that means is this entire 2 inches here and 2 inches over there, we can't click out here to write anything because that's the margin. All the writing, the body of the text is going to go right here in the middle with those very large margins. So as you can see, we can select several different ones that are here. And if you're going to be making some kind of a book or somehow binding this thing on one side or the other, then you can use some other options to do that. We're going to take a look real quick down here at custom margins and see what that looks like. So the page setup dialog box opens up and we have 3 tabs. We've got the margins tab, the paper tab, and the layout tab with all kinds of different options. We're interested in the first one that we were on, margins. And again, here we can actually switch back and forth from portrait to landscape if we're interested. And we can see right now that we have 1 inch on the top, 1 inch on the bottom, 2 inch on the left, and 2 inch on the right. And it says gutter position on the left, but we haven't given it any room for that. What is the gutter position? Again, if we were going to create some kind of a booklet or something, if we were going to bind it on this side, we might want to give a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch space there called the gutter, allowing where it's going to be bound because you can't see the words that are in there, and it just kind of moves everything over. But we're just going to leave that there just for a regular printed piece of paper for our purposes right now. So here's our preview. It shows us what we have up here. And so, for example, if I want to shrink the left side back down to 1 inch, I could certainly do that and do it in 1/10 of an inch increments. And as I do it, looking down here, you'll see that in the preview, it's showing what it's going to look like as we shrink down. So now the left side is 1 inch, but the right is still 2 inch. If I want to make some adjustments there, I can do the same thing, maybe make it 1.5. So we can do all kinds of adjustments in here and come up with any custom configuration that we're interested for whatever reasons we want those margins to be like that. And of course, the preview is showing us what happened, but even though I've made the left side 1 inch and the right 1.5, we still see that we have 2 inches over here on the left and over on the right until we hit this OK button, and then those changes are made. So now we can see that we have 1 inch on the left, and if we took the time to measure this, we'd see that that's 1.5 inches over here on the right. Well, as is the case with all things Microsoft Office, there's always more than one way to do something. And so we had clicked before on margins and selected a few of these and went down and clicked on custom margins. But here in the setup or page setup group on the layout tab ribbon, we have this little more button over here on the right. We also see it in the paragraph group. And we see this in a number of places on a number of ribbons. And what that is basically a way to get to the page setup dialog box. And if we click on that, that should look familiar. The very first tab is margins, just where we were just now with the same preview area and all of that. And we also have the ability to adjust the different kinds of paper that we want to use, kind of the same thing that we see out here under some with all those papers. We can start to scroll through here and look at all the different options, switch it to legal if we want, 8.5 by 14. And so we have just a number of different options there. And then, of course, in layout, we have additional options as far as setting up header and footer. That's for another video. But for our purposes, we go back here to margin, so we can make whatever changes we want. How about we just bump this up to 1.5 on the left, just to make it interesting. And on the top, let's make it 0.7. And you'll notice we can't get a 0.75 there, which would be actually 3/4 of an inch. So maybe we could do just this and type in 0.75. And so there we go. And then that's on the top. But if we want to do the same on the other side, we could do the same thing. We could select it right there and say 0.75, meaning 75% of an inch or 3/4 of an inch. And of course, nothing's going to happen until I hit this OK button here. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now we can see that we have different measurements out here. We've got 1.5 inches on this side, 1.5 on the other. And if we were to open this up again to be able to see it, we'd see the numbers that are there. And also, if we go back up here, now we'll see last custom setting actually shows up there. The top was 0.75, the bottom was 0.75, left was 1.5, right was 1.5. So it couldn't be easier for adjusting the margins. That's all you have to do that. And I'll just say one last thing. Don't make the mistake of thinking that you can use these tools up here where it says left indent, hanging indent, and first line indent. This is not where you adjust the margins. It may seem like that's where you adjust the margins. For example, if I select these first 4 sentences here and then I start to move this over to the left, sure enough, I can move those words a ½ inch in or incrementally over or a whole inch over into the margin. But when I click away from that, you'll still see that the margin is actually right there. And even if I click up here, the margin, the white part of the ruler is ends right there at 1.5. All we've done is created some kind of indent that looks different than the rest. And certainly you can make those options. But for now, we're just going to worry about, I'm going to undo that change that we did there just to keep the margins the same. So hopefully that helps you when you're adjusting margins and understanding how you can make those adjustments and even make custom ones. And of course, if you're using a custom one often, then it will always be there in your kind of like the recents area at the top of something that you've most recently done. So hopefully that helps. Thank you so much for coming to join us today to learn about how to adjust the margins in your Microsoft Word document. And we hope that you'll come out and enjoy our trainings. We have beginning Microsoft Word, intermediate Microsoft Word, and we also have advanced Microsoft Word classes, in addition to Excel classes and Google Office apps, such as Google Docs and Sheets and Forms and Slides, as well as Google Drive. And also know that if you want to learn more about or find out where those classes are listed, it's in the IT calendar. In the staff portal, go to the IT department and click on the link for the IT training calendar. And you'll not only find all of the office skills training classes available there, you'll also find my co-trainers in PeopleSoft and PowerSchool, and you can sign up for whatever classes you're interested in. Thank you so much for coming to learn with us today. And don't forget to tell a friend. Let's get the word out about all of these videos and training opportunities. Have a great day.